checking this connection. Hi everyone. Alright, the connection seems good. I'm going to be jumping on live with Tiarnie in a moment. So I'll just give you all a second for those of you who are going to join us live to start coming on. Hi Hamish. And soon Tiarnie. I hope it's still working. Okay, so I'm in Bali, so bear with the internet. It's like the best it can be. It says I have full reception, so this should be okay. But if there's some interruptions, then yeah, I apologize. So this is the first time I've ever done an Instagram live. I've never done this before. I was a little bit nervous about it actually. But Tiarnie's promised me that it's lots of fun. So we're looking forward to sharing the fundamentals of astrology with you today. So we're going to be talking about the whys of astrology, why it's important for you to know this stuff, why astrology is the language of the future. We're going to talk about the sun, moon and rising signs. What else? We've got some notes here. Why you don't really need to be reading those online horoscopes. I've just seen that Tiarnie's joined, so I'm going to invite her in now and we're going to get started. All right. It's awesome to have some people here. Bear with me while I do this. Here we go. Coming on in.
Yay!
Oh, it's so good to see you.
You too, beautiful.
Oh,
Where you
so
are looks luscious. Can I come, please? Please,
Can you?
please. Yes, I want to come.
Very, very fortunate, blessed. Feel very lucky to have landed where I've landed right now.
You created that. You deserve that.
Thank you.
Very gorgeous. How are you?
I'm good. This is the first Instagram live, so I'm really excited to be doing it with you. Tiarnie promised me
I'm
that it's
excited
lots of
too.
fun, nothing to be nervous about.
Exactly. It's very easy.
Yeah. Shall we just jump straight into it?
Of course.
All
Let's
right.
do
So
this.
I'd love to just, for those of you who don't know Tiarnie, I just want to introduce you to her. She's my favorite astrologer. I had a chart reading with you last year, maybe about 6 months, or more than that now. I don't know, 6 to 8 months ago, perhaps, which was just incredible. So can you maybe just tell us a little bit about you, maybe just your experience with astrology? I know that you've been studying this since you were like a really young girl. You knew this was your language.
Yeah. So, hi everyone, jumping on. Thank you for joining us, and thank you, gorgeous, for having me on. I appreciate that so much. When you messaged and were like, "Should we do this?" and I'm like, "Yes, we should. This will be a joy." So, yes, I have been pretty much studying astrology since I was 9. I love studying people. I love understanding people, and for me, astrology is the language of my soul, and it's just something it's really like the only language I get, if that makes sense. I don't really get human stuff. I get astrology. And for me, it's been a pure foundation and base to really not only understand myself. That was a big thing for me when I was a teenager, going, well, I don't want to be those traits that are that. Like, if I don't want to be ruled by that, right? I don't want to be fooled by that. As an astrologer, we say that a master rules his chart and a fool obeys it. So even when I was younger, I knew that I didn't want to just fall into this trap of being the typical stubborn Taurus, which of course, I can be, but it's about being objective and aware of the traits and what's going on for you so that you can surpass them. I think that information and awareness is power. It's power. So when we understand ourselves and we master ourselves, then we can master the universe. And I really feel like that's what astrology is. It's a secret, not so secret superpower. We know that, Ronald Reagan and so many of these, people high up work with astrologers because they have to. We want to understand what's going on. And it's prevalent. I mean, hello 2020, look what's going on. Saturn Pluto conjunction. I mean, this has been building for 38 years. It's been building for 500 years. I mean, it's all cycles. So for me, I just am fascinated with how that language up in the sky directly affects us as the collective and as individuals. So for me, yeah, studying astrology helps me to accept people, helps me to understand what other people are going through, and just to be able to have that awareness around, oh, well, me and you aren't going to really click because my moon's in this sign and your moon's in that sign, and it's not good or bad or indifferent. It's just understanding the archetypes of astrology, which is more than, of course, just, the archetypes are the signs, Aries and Taurus and so on and so forth. But when you understand that, I don't know, it's just like, it makes life easy. That's what I say to people. I think life is really easy. Even when it's hard, it's easy because you get it. Like you're understanding, oh, well, this conjunction's happening right now. It's going to feel a little bit tense, but it's going to pass. And we breathe out and it's all over. So I don't know if that's me in a nutshell, but that's how much I love astrology. I'll just start talking straight about astrology. I'll
I
bypass the me
love your
part.
passion about astrology. It really is a language that you speak, and so genuinely. Um, yeah. And
Thank you.
you're just on fire with it. Like, I love just hearing what comes out of you because it's just like powering
And we
through.
never know what's going to come out of me. Let's be honest.
um, yeah, so, and you were really preparing people for this time last year. You had your book, The Great Awake, for 2020. That's what it was called, right? The Great Awake?
Yep. The Great Awake. So the Great Crumble or the Great Awake?
Yeah.
The Great Crumble, the Great Awake. And even when I named it, and I called 2020 the year of the reckoning. And hello,
Yeah.
everyone has been reckoned in some way, shape, or form, even if it's in a good way.
Yeah.
It's a reckoning. It's a collective reckoning. It's a global reckoning. Like there is no normal now. We don't go back. It's pre 2020 and post 2020. I mean, that's
Yeah.
how we will see life from here on in. Mm.
Amazing. So I guess I've got some questions that we can just start with and go off and see where it all leads. But I wanted to talk about, I don't know where we want to start with this, but why astrology is the language of the future, and just why it's important for people to know this stuff. Like why it's important to know your chart, how it can prepare you, how it can help you access the fullest potential in life. Um, yeah, and it's something I love that you say is there's just there's no coincidences with this. You can't make this stuff up. That's what you say. Yeah, and I really love that. So I just want to, yeah, potentially start with some of those things. Why astrology is the language of the future. Why it's important for people to know this stuff. And you're amazing at actually really empowering people to learn how to. You teach people how to know this stuff for themselves
Thank
as
you.
well.
Yeah. My other friend, I've got a YouTube channel with another astrologer friend called Cosmic Conversations, and we're just literally conversing because she's the only person who can really meet me, and I meet her because we've both been studying astrology since we were 9. So she's only in her early 30s, and I'm in my late 30s, and yeah, we'll talk for 4 hours and just record an hour of it for the YouTube, but then either side of that, it's only astrology. Like we're not talking about anything else. So it's a great conversation to have with people. And that's one of the things she actually said to me, which was a beautiful compliment. And thank you as well. Just that she's like, you're so good at stripping it all back so that people can understand it. And that's something that I love to do, is because there can be this element of elitism with astrology. And when you listen to astrologers, they're throwing out all the fancy words, which I can do too, but I like to strip it right back because astrology is actually pretty easy. It's just like a language, and you don't go to Spain and just expect to understand Spanish. You're not going to do that. Like that's impossible. You've got to learn the basics. And that's what I love teaching, is the core basics. Once you understand the language, then you can listen to any astrologer and you're going to really start to pick up quite a lot. Like, it's not going to seem so foreign and, again, elitism and like, oh, they're using all these fancy words. It's really like, when we understand the signs, the planets and the houses, it's basic, it's basic, but it's layered. Like, it's interdimensional, it's intergalactic, it's layered for weeks and years. And, and I'm like, seriously, like, to even call yourself an astrologer, I think it would take at least 10 years of solid practice, like, before you even get there. So it's a very long-term thing. But for me, in trying to stay, focused on these questions as well, like why it's the language of the future. Well, a big thing for me is that Uranus, the planet, oh, yay, hi, Amy. Hello, everyone. Uranus, the planet of astrology. So Uranus is the planet that rules astrology, and it has moved into the sign of Taurus, which for us Taurians, like, we are transforming huge over this next sort of 6-7 years. We're very lucky. It's once in a lifetime, because he won't come back into Taurus again for 84 more years. So this is it. Like, in 84 more years, then he'll be in Taurus again. And for me, Taurus is so grounded. It's the real, true earth sign. Yes, Capricorn and Virgo are earth signs, but Taurus is the fixed earth sign. It is like Pachamama, like, it is the earth, like, she is the solid earth, whereas a Virgo is the mind. It's the more mutable earth sign, so it's more thinking, service. And Capricorn is the cardinal, so they're the more doing, they're the more active, initiating, great leaders and things, right? So Taurus is this like fixed earth sign. and with Uranus in Taurus, it's like, well, Uranus rules astrology, so this new language will be earthed over this next 7 years. Like, I don't see why we wouldn't be teaching our children this. For me, knowing your chart gives you insight into not only who you are and your own, not just personality, oh, you are stubborn, oh, you are this, but you're actually, when you go deeper into the signatures, you're understanding, how you can come across, where your wounds are, where your purpose is. And, maybe I know some people who have relationship stuff in this lifetime, so they never really have relationships, or they have a lot of wounds around relationships, and boom, they've got Chiron, the wounded placement, in the relationship house, So you start to see all of your own patterns, which ultimately you're going to know if you know yourself and you're awake and you're doing the work and so on and so forth. But the thing is that when you see your chart, it's sort of like this breath of like, oh, okay, so I can give myself permission to be this. You don't need to try and fight it, but then what we're doing is, again, we're mastering our chart. We've got to activate our chart and master our chart. We are the living movement of our chart every single day. So we don't want it to be stagnant. We don't want it to just be sitting there and not be worked, right? We want it to be worked. And again, like I said earlier, a fool obeys his chart. So we all have hard aspects. We all have things that we've got tension, challenge, all the things. But if we're ruled by those things, it's like we're not being the master of our own fate. We're actually just going, oh, well, in my chart, I'm going to have hardship around money. It is what it is, and surrender to that. It's like, no, what you then become to do is you can step back and observe that and actually start to rectify that. Linda Goodman says that love can conquer karma. Love can conquer the karma of your own chart. So that's the thing. There's no one chart that's like, you're doomed. There's not that, but there's a big level of responsibility with, and I see that Amy's just written something about the responsibility of knowing our own charts. Absolutely. Like, it is a responsibility. And there's a big thing too, as being objective, like being emotionally mature, because a lot of people get their charts and they'll hone in on a few like harder sort of things, and then they're sort of a bit like, oh, but I've got this and this, and they're all sad about it. And I'm like, fuck, man, like, this is extraordinary. Like, why are you allowing that to dictate you? And they're the people that sort of can, the astrology can feel heavy for them, because astrology should never invoke fear, ever. Even as an astrologer, when I talk about, oh, the reckoning and, oh, the great awake, like, that wasn't around fear. It just is what it is. And when you understand the archetypes and you understand the planets, when you can emotionally detach yourself from that and even have the ability, which does take the ability, to emotionally detach yourself from your own chart, you are liberated. Like, you can see things from a different perspective. So instead of going, oh, I've got this bad relationship thing, poor me, it's like, no, not poor you. Liberate yourself to understand that and go, hey, this is something that I've come in with. How can I rectify this? How can I balance that out? Where is this a part of my karma that I'm sort of playing out in this lifetime? Like, so much stuff around past lives and things like that, they show up in the chart, you know. And when we understand that, to me, that's just power. Like, that is like, yes, this is what we want to know. Instead of, I mean, I don't understand people that just live like this. I'm just like, you know, when people are coaching people and not knowing their charts, I'm like, what are you actually telling them? Like, yes, of course, you're holding space for them and it's magical, but without me looking at a chart, but this is in my own chart. Me saying that is all in my own chart. Like, you know, because that's what it is for me. Astrology is just, well, this is who you are. This is what's playing out right now. This is what's coming up. This is what's happened. So there's so much, to me, it's just real. It's tangible. It's life. It's everything, you know. It's water. It's air to me, you know. That's astrology for me. And I think that moving forward, astrology becoming the language of the future, I mean, to me, it's astrologically set in stone right now by Uranus, that planet of astrology, being in Taurus, which is the most fixed earth sign that there is. So it is like, you know, and me being a Taurus, channeling astrology since I was 9, like bringing it down to people is like, I'm born for this shit. You know, I'm born for these times. Like, this is what I want. Like, I want to help people to understand their own charts, because it's about stepping into self-sovereignty. You know, it's less seeking things. And today is a very magical day, because the nodes, after 18 months, so our nodes are our points in the sky of Dharma and Karma, they're moving into Gemini and Sagittarius after 18 months. They haven't been in Gemini and Sagittarius for nearly a decade. So we're going to actually be going into this brand new set of eclipses and set of energetic points of fate and karma and dharma and past and releasing. And what we're actually moving into is the South Node being in Sagittarius, which is all guru stuff, which is all, I'm seeking outside of myself and I'm putting that self on a pedestal. We're actually being encouraged from the cosmic galactic forces. No, you have it within you. And I mean, for some of us, we've known this and we've been living this for a very, very long time. But for other people, they're still soul seeking outside of themselves, happiness being outside. But when we understand the chart and this South Node in Sagittarius, which is pointing us away from guru mentality, you know, and back to what's within you, be curious. You know, that's my quote of this new nodal cycle is stay curious. Be curious. Don't think you know everything. And fuck, it really applies to me too, because, you know, well, us Taurine and Capricorns, we think we know quite a lot, and we do. But there's this element of us staying really curious now, really malleable. So this Sagittarian energy of, you know, this is the answer, this is the path, this is the philosophy, this is the guru, this is the higher knowledge, this is the quest. It's like, no, we need to actually move away from that and come back to earth a little bit. You know, Gemini is a very, Gemini is the dual sign of the two, the communicator, the thinker, yeah, the absorber of information, the collector of knowledge. So instead of having all the knowledge like Sagittarius, we're collecting all of the knowledge and starting to integrate that into our bodies, you know. And this is where we're even being up-leveled collectively by the universe to say, you know, we've got to make that shift now of leaders, gurus, really, you know, the astrology is there exactly like you were saying before. Like, it's not a coincidence, because there's no coincidences. It just it just is. It always just is. The astrology is here setting up our future for us. And I think one of the most important components of that is knowing your own chart. And a big thing around that is that there's so much social media astrology these days, which is just rubbish. And, you know, generalizing, oh, the Pluto retrograde will be this or that. But if you don't even know where it's happening in your own chart, to me, what's the point? Like, I don't actually understand people that jump on the bandwagons of, oh, this eclipses are powerful. Yeah, but where's it happening in your own chart? You know, like, this is why you want to know your own chart, and not to be an astrologer, not to go and tell everyone you're an astrologer, but for your own self. This is what we're moving into: self-sovereignty, self-awakening, self-awareness, unlimitless potential, all of the things, you know, but it's all self. It's all self-motivated, self-activated, self-inspired. And knowing your chart is, to me, the biggest key in unlocking your potential, unlocking who you are and where you're going. And because social media, and astrology's blown up so much, which, trust me, I love it. I love that more people are wanting to know and learn. But then then there's the other side of it, which is the entertainment industry of astrology. I mean, the spiritual industry itself is an entertainment industry. And then astrology, tack that shit on, like it's just entertainment. And everyone sort of gets scared about Mercury retrogrades and stuff. But what if you've got Mercury retrograde in your own natal chart? Like, you don't even know that, yet you jump on the bandwagon, because it's so easy to be whitewashed into believing what you're seeing in your feed, like, oh, the Mercury retrograde, oh, this moon. But where is it happening for you? Like, it might be the most empowering moon of your year, but you're not going to know, because you're jumping onto everyone else's insights, which aren't even their own insights. They're just sort of regurgitating some shit, that sounds good. So I think that's why I love teaching you about your own chart, because once you've got that, I mean, the world is, it's your oyster then. All of a sudden, the understanding and the awareness propels you in a whole different level, and you really feel the activations personally, instead of being swept up with the comicalness of this mainstream astrology.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, that's such an important piece that you mentioned, because it's so often that we're seeing things on social media and going, oh, this is happening with the moon, and it's going to feel like this for everyone, or this is happening with this planet, and it's gone into retrograde, and now I'm going to have 3 months of feeling like this, when exactly like you said, if you actually look at your own chart, it could open up a whole new story for you, and something else to look at for you. So we can't really be jumping on the collective narrative with those things. And that also kind of takes us into, I'm sure all of us at some point in our life have read our sun sign in the online horoscopes, or for me it used to be the magazines, or I even had like a book of Capricorn where you could read every day for a year, when I was quite young. And how they're just, why do people not, like, they don't need to be focusing on those, they don't need to be reading those? There's so much more to you than the sun sign.
Of course, yeah, there is. I mean, they are very generic and they are very general. Now, I don't really like that sort. I don't know. I mean, I don't even know the technical term. Maybe it's mundane astrology. I don't know. It's not something that I love. But of course, I grew up reading Taurus, because I wanted to get to know myself, and that's what people want to do, right? Like, that's the reason we read them, is because we want to know more about ourselves. And whether it's predictive or not really into that, because there is something general around Capricorn. Like, yes, at the moment, all of this stuff will be going through all of Capricorn's first house, but you've got a different ascendant to that. Like, so your rising, your ascendant sign is different. And so what the best thing to do, if you are still sort of invested in reading those things, which, there's only one I love on social media, and that is called Hair of the Moon Astrology by Lorna Bevan. And she would be the only one I sort of read for upcoming stuff, because she's a magician. She's magical. And I will always read my sun and my rising. Like, so that's where you want to read. Like, if you really want to read where it's activating in your chart, it has to be the rising sign. So I can read Taurus. So, for example, Taurus, say for Uranus is in Taurus, so it will talk about, for all Taurians, Uranus is activating the first house, okay? So this is self and self-transformation. But because I've got a Libra ascendant, even though Uranus is in my 7th house now, but it would move to the 8th house because that's the Taurus ruled house, they would say, so Libras, what they would be interpreting is Uranus in the 8th house and the depth of that transformation, right? So it's different, so 8th and 1st house. So you can read them. I don't deter people from reading them, because but as long as you're not basing your life on them, like, that's the thing. Like, you can't base your, of course, it's this much of the picture, if that, and that's the biggest thing, is that yes, we all have a sun sign, but we all have a rising and a moon sign, and those three together make up sort of our everyday thing. Like, that's what we're working with every single day. But ultimately, yeah, we are, for some people, say you've got like you've got Sun in Capricorn, but just say that that's all, and you never resonated with Capricorn, so then you would have been like dismissive of astrology and just gone, oh, like, you know, like I'm nothing like a Capricorn. But say that's the only planet in your whole chart that is in the sign of Capricorn. I mean, I know for you it's not because you're an Earth mama, with all that Earth, but if it was, you know, then you would dismiss astrology like so many people do, and it's because of these, you know, thank them, you know, thank you for bringing astrology to mainstream. And yes, while it's generic, if you move to that rising sign, you're getting a much clearer picture of what house that energy is activating for you. So it's not always going to be the sun sign. Well, it's very rarely the sun sign house. Okay. So yeah, I don't want to say I just don't, you just don't rest your laurels on that. Like, your chart is who you are, and it gives the many, 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 many intricate layers of now, past, future. Like, it gives so much. Like, it's a never ending portal, to be completely honest. I read them not as a prediction, but if affirming what's happening, and then let it go. Yeah, absolutely. Like, you can definitely, and that's what I mean. Like, I read
and out
one
of
round, I've got
curiosity.
yeah, absolutely. And there's
Sometimes
nothing
it's just
wrong.
a
I mean,
bit of
we're
fun
humans.
yeah.
And if you can take it as a bit of fun, then it doesn't matter so much, right? Like, exactly that. You're just reading it. It's just a little bit of insight. It's like, oh, okay, that might come up for me. But so often than not, the sun sign stuff maybe might resonate a bit, but the ascendant rising sign, that's what will resonate more, because that's actually what's happening in your chart. But then you don't know how many more planets are in that chart, like what's going on in that chart. Like, it's a continual layered you know, tool, astrology. It's so many layers. And even when I teach online, like, I'm like, this is like 3 grains of sand I'm giving you in 12 hours of information. 3 grains of sand, because it's just, there is so much more that's going on. Like, planets are talking to one another, and planets are moving in the sky. They're doing different things. So it's intricate and deep, and there is certain aspects in someone's chart that makes them an astrologer, because it is something really deep to get into. And, you know, I can be teaching people for years and they still struggle. Like, they're just like, I just can't grasp it. And I'm like, and that's okay. Like, it might take you 15 years to really even just understand the basics, but that's okay. Like, if you're really invested in it and it is your language, like it is for me, like, I literally live in astrology all day, every day. Like, that's all I do. And I wouldn't want it any other way. Like, you know, like, you're the first call of 4 today that I'm having with either clients or astrology groups or my astrology, like my YouTube channel. Like, it's just astrology all day, every day for me. You know, I've got the nodes changing today, which is very exciting. After 18 months, we're finally moving out of this Cancer Capricorn energy, which is going to be really, really beautiful. It's been very big. We're going to be moving to this very mutable Gemini Sagittarius. It's like, yay, we can just fucking, like, let it go for a little bit. Like, it's going to be really nice. So it's just this constant,
That's happening today?
It is.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, on the 5th of the 5th.
Mm-hmm.
Really powerful.
And the whole day itself is a 5 as well. So it's 5-5. So the whole day is a 5 portal today. So it's big energy today. It's really big energy. I've already been in it, had a cry. It's all happening.
Yeah. What was I going to ask you there? I've got 2 things. Oh, for those,
Okay.
I feel like quite a few people who are actually on here live right now probably have already know a little bit about this, but for anyone watching later who doesn't, just the really basics on what is a sun sign, what is a moon sign, and what is a rising sign, for those who have just never heard of this before, because it's just a really good fundamental of astrology to begin with.
Yeah, absolutely.
And just a brief overview.
Yeah. So the sun sign is who you are. Like, you want to master your sun sign ultimately. The sun is who you are. It's your purpose. It's your ego. It's the suit that you're wearing. So for me, it's Taurus. For you, it's Capricorn. Like, it's the archetype that you've chosen to express in this lifetime. So if you relate to someone as a Capricorn, which we do because we're human, don't get me wrong, I still, even as an astrologer, do it, but you can't define all of a sign by 3 people you know. Like, that's where astrology gets messy and gets like, I know people who just hate certain signs, and I'm like, because they had an X, and I'm like, oh my God, you need to, like, that's where emotional maturity comes into astrology, right? So that's what it is, right? So there needs to be a level of emotional maturity. So just so you know that a Capricorn isn't just the 3 people that you know that are Capricorns. Like, Capricorn has its own archetype, so you have to understanding that archetype, because that's the suit. I'm dressed in the Taurus suit, and that's what I'm expressing in this lifetime. So I call myself a Taurus, but really I'm just expressing myself as a Taurus. But that's your sun sign. Your moon sign is your deeper feelings. Like, it is your unconscious. It is your subtleties. It's actually where sometimes maybe you only really feel like you can express your moon sign at home, where you feel safe. You know, the moon is the feminine. It's the mother. It's the nurturer. It's the soul. So it goes to the deepest, most innermost part of yourself. And then the ascendant, or the rising sign, is the time of your birth. It sets up your entire chart. So it's very important. Time of birth is crucial to set your chart up. And that is your exterior layer. Now, it's not, there's a lot of weird stuff that goes around around the ascendant and the rising sign, but ultimately it's not a mask or fake, as in it's not who you are. It's a massive part of who you are, because it's the way you express, it's the way you interact every day. Like, for me, most people, even astrologers, never pick me to be a Taurus sun, because I'm animated, I'm this, I'm like la la la, and that's because I've got a Libra ascendant, which is air. Then I've got 3 planets in Libra. So that's all that air. Then I have my Mercury, which is my communication planet, in Gemini, which is another air sign. So whilst I do have a few planets in Taurus, and there is that heavy Taurian energy, and I really, I am a very embodiment of Taurus, pleasure, all the Taurian things. But what you see with someone is more so their rising sign, is more so their ascendant. Now, even good astrologers, even me sometimes, like, I can sometimes pick people's sun, but often what I will pick is their moon or their ascendant. I can often feel people's moons. Again, because I feel astrology, I'm a very intuitive astrologer. I feel it through myself, so I can feel their feel their moon sign. But sometimes I'm pretty good at picking sun signs, but sun signs can be harder to pick, because what you see with me isn't so much Taurus. It is like that's who I am as I'm expressing and embodying that archetype. But I'm very mercurial. I'm very air and light and chatty and personable. I'm very Libran, right? Like, I love to have relationships with people, and So that's really what you are displaying every day, is your ascendant, is your rising. That's how you interact with people. So it's not a mask that you're hiding, but it's actually just the way you show up every day. And for some people, like, there's
yourself to the world.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so and that's just the beginning, right? Like, you've got planets in here and this house, and like planets and houses, it's a whole other thing that I'm really looking forward to diving into and understanding more. And I signed up for your 3-week mini series, so I'm super excited about that, because I've been wanting. I still look at my chart and I'm like, whew, I don't know where to start.
Yeah.
I've had my chart reading, and I've listened to the recording of that even recently, actually, which was really good to hear again. But to be able to understand it more, so I can, if something's going on in my life, I can look at my chart and go, oh, okay, well, this planet's here, and I'm moving through this, and just to have the awareness so you can take action. And like you said, it's empowering. It's not like, oh, poor me, I've got relationship issues in this lifetime. That's just how it's going to be. It's, shining a light on what some of the issues, like what might arise for you in life, and then being able to take action and change that. Like, look at that, and what can I do?
Self-responsibility.
Yeah. So it's not like this blueprint that you can't change, in a way. Like, I don't really know how to put that in the right words, but
the blueprint itself evolves. That's progressional astrology. So so our birth chart evolves because we evolve, but it stays the same. Like, there's fundamentals there that are just us. But again, like Linda Goodman says, love can conquer the karma of a chart. And for me, you can't conquer yourself or evolve if you're not aware of yourself. You know, there's so many people who aren't self-aware, and you know, if you understand your chart, but then even people that know their chart and study their chart, they're still unaware, or they're very hooked into, oh, the poor me. I mean, I see it all the time. Like, it's just, they still get, because they can't detach from that because their awareness isn't there yet, and that's okay. Like, that's often in the chart. Like, you can sort of feel newbie sort of souls that are like, okay, this is going to be a little bit harder for them to navigate this lifetime, you know. And often the interesting part of that is that a lot of, like, what you would call happy or positive aspects in a chart, someone with heaps and heaps of those can often tend toward being a little lazy or a little, you know, silver spooned, and they haven't been through hardship. And then you can see people who have been through so much hardship who just do not play victim, and they've had, like, Pluto hit every one of their friggin' planets in their life. Like, I've just had a girl in my course at the moment, Pluto in her whole 36 years has hit all of her planets. Okay, like, for me, I'm 39 on Saturday, and it's hit two of my planets, two,
Yeah.
and it will not hit like it has for her. So the way your chart is set up, there's certain things, yet I've never heard her whinge or complain or play victim. Yet I know people who have nothing like that, but they just live like that. They've got too many positive aspects in their chart, and there hasn't been enough push and pull. I mean, a hard aspect in a chart is there's tension, right? And one of the aspects is called a square. It's a 90 degree, and the coolest way I learn about a 90 degree aspect, which is a tense aspect, a square, which means that you are confronting yourself in those areas, like it's your own lesson, is that you can't build a house without a 90 degree angle. Like, you can't build structures without these tense aspects. So whilst everyone might love grand trines, and I've got all the triangles and they're beautiful. I mean, I think you've got one yourself. Like, grand trines are beautiful. Like, I've got a couple as well. But the thing is that it's the squares that make us. You know, it's the squares, it's those tense aspects where we have to come up against ourselves. Hey,
They build those foundations.
absolutely, absolutely. So yeah, it's the awareness of understanding the chart, and seeing all these nuances, and exactly that. Like, we do evolve, and and like you said, it is when we are the masters of our own lives and stepping into that sovereignty, we are then the creators of everything else, like the entire universe. Like, that's how I see it. That's how I've always lived, is that I master myself and I master the universe. And that's why I think astrology is like a secret, not so secret superpower. It gives you the information. If you understand it, it's already given you the answers for what's coming up when that transit happens or when that happens. I mean, you're driving and you can see the lightning, and you have to still drive there, like, and that's okay, because the awareness gives you that power and that understanding of, oh, okay, it's going to be a little bit stormy, but the storm doesn't last forever. But if you don't see it, you can be in it and think the storm's going to last forever, right?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Mm.
Like, you can really prepare yourself for it, and also not be afraid of it and in avoidance of it, you know. And then, so when you're in the middle of that storm, you're not sitting there being completely afraid, or trying to avoid that it's even happening. You can fully face it, and there's so much power in that, because I think then you can move through things quickly. Or, you know, when they're in their the chart, and they're just going to be happening for a certain period of time, you know, like, you just have that awareness that this is occurring, and you can,
Mm.
I think you can just meet it in such a different way when you actually know, um, and are
Exactly.
prepared for what's coming up, and not to be afraid of it. Like, it's really, you don't need to be scared of what's happening.
Exactly.
Um, yeah, so I really love that. So excited to learn more. I really am. It's I wanted to just ask. I had a question pop into my mind before about maybe myth busting a little bit of the Saturn return, because I know a
Mm.
lot of people go, oh, it's 28 to 30, or that always happens when you're 27, or always happens when you're 29. But that's not really the case. And, you know, there was, when I had my chart reading with you, I was like, what's been going on? I'm in my Saturn return for sure. Like, this is definitely happening. And you're like, no, actually, you haven't even hit that yet. Like,
Had it
it's
yet?
not,
Yeah.
yeah. And I was like, well, what's been going on?
Yeah.
So yeah, just speaking a little bit to the Saturn return. Um,
Mm.
and it just, yeah, maybe busting that myth on when it happens.
Yeah, well, ultimately, the thing is that when Saturn moves into the sign that your Saturn is in, everyone just thinks that that's a Saturn return. But say your Saturn is, say, 29 degrees Aquarius. Okay, so Saturn at the moment is at 1 degree Aquarius. So you're not having your Saturn return yet. Like Saturn spends 2.5 years in one sign. Okay, so you're not going to have a 2.5 year Saturn return. For some people, the Saturn return, and usually because he retrogrades, so he will pass over your Saturn. It can happen 3 times for people, depending on the degree. So you've got to look at what degree your Saturn is to begin with, and then you need to obviously understand what's going on in the skies, like when Saturn comes in. But to bust the myth is that yes, it usually is between 27 to 30. It will happen at some point in those 3 years, but it doesn't happen for 3 years, and it won't happen the entire time. And often I've had so many people come to me, like lately it's been a lot of sort of just post Saturn return sort of people, and ultimately they think that they're in it, similar to you, but it's actually in another year. So it's actually not even building to that for a full another year yet. Or, you know, they feel like they're in it, but they had it a year and a half ago. And I'm like, you've already had it. Like, and they're like, oh my God, you know, so it's again, the myth is that it's just lasts this whole time. I think that you think that it lasts this whole time, and there's fear around it. And that's the thing for me, is like, if anything evokes fear in astrology, again, you know, that is the responsibility of the astrologer. And even I know astrologers who still go, oh, Mercury retrograde, like it's, oh, our communication's going to be shit. I'm like, don't say that, because that's not necessarily the case. You know, we can't just sit around while things are in retrograde and hope that life will just pass us by. Like, we have to be in it and make decisions, and exactly what you said, meet it. We're meeting everything. And with the Saturn return, Saturn is about responsibility and success. He's actually an alchemist. He wants you to succeed, but to succeed, you need to be honest with yourself. And at that age, you're being asked, what do you really want moving forward with your life? You know, some people don't want to stay married. Some people don't want to go to the job that they've just spent 5 years in a uni degree doing. But guess what? They do it anyway, which means that they're not listening to themselves. They're not reflecting and really digging deep around restructuring the way they want their next 30 years to look. So the biggest thing I say to people is you need to be honest with yourself. And I think I said to you, it's about, like, on your reading, it was about like not selling yourself short. If you're and often people are in relationships, right? And if you're in a relationship that you know isn't where you want to go, but you stay in that, well, then you haven't listened. You haven't gotten the lesson of Saturn return. Saturn wants to teach you the lessons, and he is a taskmaster. He is the disciplinary. He is the father of the zodiac. I love Saturn. Saturn is one of my favorite planets, and everyone fears him, and because he does evoke fear. But that's because people don't want to be honest with themselves. Like, they'd rather Neptune their whole life. Oh, no, I'm just going to wear rose-colored glasses and it'll get better. He'll change. Or, you know, no, this is the job that I've been wanting to do. Like, you've got to be careful what you wish for, because you get it and it's not fucking what you expect it to be. And then all of a sudden, you know, you're coming onto your 30s where you need to put your big girl pants on or your big boy pants on, and it's about maturing. You know, like some astrologers, and I'm probably one of them, I mean, I respect everyone, and I think everyone is like fully valid and amazing, but until you've had your Saturn return, like, you haven't had your Saturn return yet. Like, it's one of the first most maturing aspects of your life. And even if you've been a really mature kid, I mean, I grew up very quickly. I've been a mum since I was 16. So my Saturn return was pretty seamless because I knew what I wanted. I was doing what I was meant to be doing. I was with the partner I wanted to be with. I wasn't feeling pressured by society. So a lot of that for people can be, what are people expecting of you? Like, you might want to be 30 or 28 or whenever it happens for you and not want to settle down. But there's this, like, the parents are going, oh, when are you having a baby? When are you getting married? When are you buying a house? And if you then sort of succumb to that, you're going against the grain of your own nature. You're going against the grain of your own alignment, and you're being out of alignment by doing something karmically that actually starts a brand new karmic cycle for you for the next 30 years. And often what happens is, if you're not really honest with yourself for your first Saturn return, your second one can be pretty big. Like, it can actually be a little bit more destructive, because, I mean, I know a lot of late 50 to 60-year-old people, they're not happy. They've been married for a long time. Their kids have all moved out, and they're still, you know, they did it because they thought they had to. Now, look, we're not in that generation where we feel limited and inhibited by that, where we feel like we have to stay with the father, and we'll stay in the relationship for the children. I mean, straight away, like, not that I want to be, go into relationship stuff. I love talking about relationship stuff. But the thing is that if you are only in a relationship for your children, red flag. Sorry, it's red flag. Like, it's not a thing, and often at around that age, people are starting to question, well, are we eye to eye here? Are we on the same page? Do we want the same thing moving forward? So, I mean, really, yes, there are lessons, there is karma around the Saturn return, but for me, and I know it's just a part of my nature, but I love being honest with myself and shredding that shit and shedding that skin and transforming and going, hey, I'm going to face that within myself. I don't run away from the truth. And I think that the Saturn return is one of our first real powerful transits where we get to reflect and say, what is the foundation we're building? Are there already cracks in it? And do we want to heal those cracks moving forward? Because for some people, it's just an element of going, hey, I actually do really want this relationship to work, right? So they need to work together. They need to do some healing there, right? To build that foundation, because that's what Capricorn is. Saturn, Capricorn, it's foundations, it's structures. So you're really being asked to look at the structures in your life. Look at, are you building a life on sand? Like it's all about money and status and all those sorts of things, because that stuff always comes crumbling down. And, and then you're going to go through bankruptcy and all those sorts of things. I mean, Saturn will teach you the lesson. So if you're scared of lessons and scared of yourself and your own truth, hey, Saturn return might be difficult. But I see a lot of very, well-known people all over social media sort of claiming that their Saturn return is just like flooring them. And I'm like, yes, facing your own truth can floor you. Let's all not deny that. We can fucking cry for 6 weeks. I get there, been there, do that, like human, hello. But the thing is that the Saturn return isn't anything to be feared. The Saturn return to me is to be embraced. It's like, right, this is the time of growing up, maturing. It's a beautiful pivot point of what do I really want moving forward, and having to be really honest with yourself. So I think that hopefully that busted the myth, or I don't know, amplified it. Who the hell knows?
That was awesome. It was really good. Yeah, I loved your explanation of that. And it's interesting because it's really like if whatever's not in alignment in your life when the Saturn return comes, that's up for question, and that's what starts to fall away, and that's what you need to meet and seek the truth on, right? And what you want. But
absolutely.
But if you like you had a pretty seamless first Saturn return, because you had a lot of those foundations in your life in alignment, and you already knew what you wanted. So for some people, it could just go by and not be too difficult. So it's really not something to be afraid of, and we also don't want to be afraid of the truth either. Like if it's sitting down and getting really honest with ourselves about things, we can't be afraid of doing that. Like because if you can just meet that and you'll come out, you just move through things so much faster, and you just bust through the other side so much more empowered, like rather than sitting in avoidance for years on end, and in confusion, and not fun.
Absolutely. And I like what you said there too. I think that's a good point that I didn't make, is that whatever is falling away at your Saturn return, so for some people, they move house, they have relationship breakups, they quit their jobs, they move jobs, whatever's falling away, it's an element of not trying to resist that or hold on to that. And that was a very good point. So I'm glad you said that, because that is one of the main things too, really, is whatever is being sheared away and that is dropping and being let go of in your life, not trying to hold on to that, because that's falling away at that period of time for a reason.
Yeah. And there's other things that could be going on. Like for me, I think, I don't know if it was when I was having really big changes in my life, but I had also had Pluto hit, I don't know exactly.
Your sun?
But yeah, I'd had Pluto hit quite a few planets, houses.
Your Capricorn planets.
Yes. And that was really some of the big stuff for me, more so than the Saturn return, you know. So I'd already had a lot crumble and fall away and have to get into alignment and change things before the Saturn return even came. And that's been, I think that happened in February. And, you know, I didn't notice, I didn't have a huge upheaval. I didn't have a huge emotional time in my life. And, but I was also really aware that that was coming up as well, and to just take it easy and be willing to question things. And
Yeah,
so
that awareness.
yeah, awareness is really empowering.
It is.
Before we have to jump off, I really want to mention, because I mentioned it earlier, that I'm doing a 3-week mini course, but for anyone who's wanting to really dive into this, and now hopefully you can really see the importance of knowing the language of astrology and why it's important for us to just know our personal chart. You're holding a 3-week mini series, fundamentals really of astrology, because there's so many layers. But can you tell us a little bit about that course? And then I know you've also got a 6-week astrology course as well. So maybe just tell us a little bit about those if people are wanting to know more.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so I just decided to do a little 3-week, because some people like bite-sized bits of information and they just want to sort of learn a little bit and learn a little bit. So I just have put together this little 3-week mini series. The first week we look at sun, moon and rising. The second week I'm actually talking about how the nodes have changed, and I can tell you what houses are going to be activated and lit up for you in your own personal chart for the next 18 months. So what areas? So for some people it's going to be communication and spirituality. For other people it's going to be relationships with others and relationship to themselves. For some people it's going to be, you know, solitude and everyday life ritual stuff. So, you know, it's all different. So whatever house the nodes are moving through and what they're activating. So that's actually, that's actually a little bit like, like different astrology, not just basic stuff, but I wanted to add something a little bit fun in there as well, which was what was happening now. And then the third week we're doing elements. So we're really just looking at all the elements in your chart. So understanding air, earth, fire and water, because when you lack one of those, you know, it really shows, and you've got to invite that in. So we're really going to just go through those sort of elemental archetypes and have a look in your own chart, what dominant element you are, and then what element you might be lacking, and really play with it. Like, elements are so much fun, and it's so important because we work with the elements every day, and to understand the elements just a little bit better. Ultimately, you know, these are all, you know, especially week 1 and week 3, they're all off the back of my astrology course. So they're just snippets. I mean, I could talk about astrology for 58 hours and I have to contain myself, because I've just put this little mini series together as sort of just something fun for people, something to, you know, just spice up, like to understand their own bits of their own chart a little bit better, even if they're not wanting any further teachings about it. But then obviously in my 6-week course that I teach online, it's very much, we spend 6 whole weeks, and for me what I'm teaching is the language, and then just for people to be able to look at their own charts without being confused. I mean, that's the biggest thing. It's like, because people can look at the charts and they're all confused, but I just sort of go through and show you what you're looking at, show you what each thing means, and that's the full 6-week course, which is just so beautiful. I've been doing it for a few years now, and it just still makes me cry nearly every time I do it, because just people, just after week 1, after just learning about the elements, what they understand about themselves and their family members, it changes them. They're just like, oh my God, now I understand my relationship. Oh my God, now I understand why I'm lazy. Oh my God, now I understand why I'm this, you know. And it's just elements, like that's just one thing. So when we can sort of take all these little bits and bobs, we can start to get the whole picture. And yes, that takes many, many, many years. But the thing is that all of a sudden there's just these insights, there's just these little pings of understanding, and that straight away, it's better than not knowing. Like, that's my biggest thing. Like, you want to know other than not know, because then you have self-awareness. Like, that's what awareness is understanding the self. And, you know, astrology is our blueprint, right? So it's going to be fun. I can't wait.
It's like it's the blueprint, and it holds the keys to life. And when we have those and can unlock them, we just navigate life so differently. And with awareness, we feel empowered, we're prepared. So yeah, it's so juicy, and I'm only just hitting the, I'm just excited to learn some foundations so that I can look at my own chart and start to get to know it really well. Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's the main thing, that's the only legacy I would ever want to leave, is that people know who they are. Like, that's it. I'm not here to change anyone, or my way is not the right way. I'm not here to do any of that. Like, I just know who I am, and I live from that. I create from that. That's how I show up. And I think that it's so liberating to be who you really are, to be brave and to be that person, as opposed to covering up who you are, or not even knowing who you are. But some people that don't know who they are, that's in their charts. For some placements, there are placements where it is harder to access who you are. You've got to do different sort of work. And I mean, I had like 3 clients in 1 week, all with their sun in their 12th house. And the sun in the 12th house is a hidden self. So, it's difficult for them to really access who they are and who they want to be. So to even understand that, there's this element of, again, like, I can sigh out, I can exhale, like, I'm not crazy, or I'm not making shit up. This is just literally, like, this is just who I am. Like, this is who I chose to be in this lifetime. And the astrology, our own natal chart, holds all of that information. And that's what I love about it. There's no guesswork. There's nothing else but right there, black and white. That's what it is. And it's magical. It's the magical key to the universe into unlocking everything. So it couldn't be greater.
It's amazing. And I have, this is my own little theory, that it's like, I believe we chose to be here. We chose to come here. And I believe that in some way our essence has chose to incarnate on the planet at a very specific time, so that everything was lined up to fully express our mission, our purpose, and who we are here. And that's like the blueprint, so it's like we chose this. We chose to be this person, and that's just my own personal like belief and theory. But yeah, it's like the blueprint of our essence for who we wanted to be in this lifetime and the lessons that we wanted to learn.
Absolutely. And that's why, even in the chart, like, you can see past lives, and you can see where you've come from by looking at the South Node. You can understand why you've chosen this. And I have always had that belief too, since I was quite young. I was like, I know that I chose all of this. And then when I look at my chart, I'm like, I chose my chart. And I still have people that are my students, not like their charts. And I'm like, wow, that's you, that's who you are, and that's who you chose to be. So those harder aspects in your chart, you chose that to overcome that. It's an element of karma, but it's an element of exactly what you said. Yes, incarnating here specifically. Like, this is why we did that. I mean, I had an astrology teacher message me the other day, because I did this cool Venus course around the star of Venus, and if you've got a morning Venus or an evening Venus. And look, my whole chart's Venusian with all of my Taurus and Libra, so it was such a cool little thing. But she messaged me the next day going, gosh, I just had to message you because you're this harbinger for this new age, because of, I'm born with the Saturn-Jupiter conjunction, which only happens every 20 years. So 81 babies will have this same conjunction depending on the degree and stuff, but mine's quite close. So in December, we've got a Jupiter-Saturn conjunction, which is very much a great conjunction as well, in a very different way. It's going to feel very different to this Pluto-Saturn one that I've been preparing everyone for 18 months. But because I have that in my chart, she's just messaged me going, oh my God, like, and we see this in our chart. And of course I chose this time to come here. Like, I chose that day to be born because I have this conjunction, and now I get to reap the benefits of that, to be honest, because we're moving into a whole new air cycle. So we've just come from an earth cycle, so we're moving into an air cycle. So now Saturn and Jupiter, every 20 years when they make their connection, will only happen in an air sign for the rest of our lives, for 200 years or something. So we are literally in a whole new, brand new wave of not only conjunctions and cycles, but what all of this is doing is we're ending cycles. And that's what 2020 is really big. We're ending some cycles, like that Saturn Pluto thing that we've just gone through, or that we're going through, we're still in it. this is the end of the 81, 82 cycle, even 83, maybe, no, 82, my husband's got it conjunct. Anyway, sorry, now I'm going straight into astrology talk, but he's got it, but we're ending this, it's all around relationships and stuff. So we're actually ending certain cycles, and to have 2020 begin the year with a Saturn-Pluto conjunction, end the year with a Saturn-Jupiter conjunction, like it's big. It's a big year. It was always set to be a big year. I mean, I've been waiting for 2020 for about 3 years. I've been preparing people for it. I've been preparing myself for it. Could I have known that it would be a pandemic to close down the entire world? No, but I was pretty close. I knew that it was going to be fucking global and fucking huge. But no, I wasn't. I didn't pick. And, you know, with Neptune hanging around, I could have picked disease, but I just didn't. And Pluto and all the things. But anyway, you know, for me, it's not about predicting to get right. It's just about understanding the cycles of astrology. And that's all we do. We just continually have these cycles. And, you know, where I was going with that is in our own chart, we do have this blueprint of why we are here and why we didn't incarnate. And for my generation as well, like we do have this Jupiter Saturn. Yours might be as close like mine is, or it might be exactly conjunct. But this is very big for us. Like we have something very big to start ushering in this new world, which I, to be honest, feel like I've been doing for over a decade. You know, 15 years, I feel like the 5D's just been my normal. I'm like, yay, finally, the whole fucking world's caught up with me. But it's just like, it's happening so hugely.
We just got cut off there, so I'm just going to let Tiarnie finish. We're almost done, but I want to let her finish what she was saying. Let's see if we can get her back on. Maybe. Hi Vera, hi Tennille. I've just been doing a live with Tiarnie, but we got cut off because we went to the hour. But she was just touching on some last little things and it was epic. So I'm going to see if I can get her back on here. But there she is. All right, Tiarnie, you were just like on such a roll and it was the very end. So I'm going to just let you finish because it was epic what you were saying. So let's get you on here. And just keep rolling, keep going.
Oh my God. Is that because we went, and is that because we've just been speaking for an hour? I can't believe that's an hour. It felt like 20 minutes.
I was watching the camera, I'm like, wait.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
And
that is crazy.
You've probably got to go soon. So I'll let, but
yes,
what you were saying was awesome. So I'll let you keep going.
Yeah, it was just, I just was fundamentally coming from, what you said there is that we did choose this time to be born, and it's in our chart, these specific conjunctions, especially outer ones, like the ones that then we are moving forward into as we usher in this new earth. So it's very powerful, and that's really, what I was saying with that. I just wanted to agree with you, but my agreeing is 10 minutes more talking. And I can't believe when I looked and I'm like, oh my God, it's 12 o'clock. I can't believe we've been talking for an hour. It literally only feels like 20 minutes. Anyway,
I love where
as you can see
things too, because you just like, I keep just saying on fire. It's like epic downloads of, and you really are one of the most genuine and real, authentic people I know, and that's why I love learning this from you. Like truly, you say you just know who you are, and you really, really do, and it's very inspiring. Yeah,
thank you.
And these planets, as a last minute note, these planets give us opportunities, right? They give us opportunities in life, so we've got to take them. And if we know what's happening in the sky, we can look at how that unfolds for us, and we can take the opportunities that they're giving to us. So it's nothing to be scared of. It's like we've been saying, it's empowering. It's to be aware is empowering for each person.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. So I will.
It's been so magic talking to you, sister.
So magic, and people can go and connect with you over on your Instagram, and you've also got a Facebook page. So if anyone wants to join one of your courses or just connect with you, even you do one-on-one chart readings. I think you do mentoring as well. Yeah. So if you would like to go and connect with Tiarnie, I'd highly recommend getting a chart reading for sure. And so looking forward to seeing you next Monday. Your course kicks off on the 11th of May.
It does.
And it's 3 weeks every Monday.
Yep, every Monday night for 3 weeks, we get to dive into a little bit of astrology. And then my 6-week course kicks off on June the 10th. And if you decide to come to my course, you get the 3-week mini-series for free.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And I hope you have
My
an
pleasure,
amazing,
beautiful.
powerful portal day today.
You too, gorgeous.
I will.
Thank you so much for this opportunity, beautiful. Love you.
Love you. Thank you for just being in my life and for sharing your wisdom with everyone.
I feel the same. I'm so grateful to have you in my life.
Thank you. Much
love you,
everyone.
darling.
Thank you for those who joined
Thanks
live.
for joining us.